Howdy folks, and welcome to the Homestead. This is Howie here, and hope you're having a blessed day. And I'm going to show you how I plant tomatoes, and I'm calling this the #1 best way to grow tomatoes. World's greatest tomatoes, Howie's special, whatever you want to call it. The reason I call this the best way to grow tomatoes is I've experimented with several different ways, and while they work, this works the best. And I hope you can hear me over the chickens and everything. I just got through feeding everything this morning. But anyway, I'm going to plant this tomato here in this spot, and this tomato plant has some damage. It looks like maybe a hornworm ate this. It's the only one in the garden, but all the leaves are ate off of it. And it is stunted. It's not going to make it. It might could, but I bought this heirloom tomato here. It's a Cherokee Purple. And because we're here in Oklahoma, in Cherokee country, not that that probably has anything to do with this tomato, but I did think it'd be neat to put one out in the garden. These, by the way, if you like Cherokee Purple tomatoes, they are great tasting. They've got one of the best flavors. They're just not a heavy producer for us, but I do plant 1 or 2 or 3 a year. And so Josie picked this up, and I was like, I've got the perfect spot left out here. I've got Better Boy tomatoes up and down this row, but it's going to have one Cherokee Purple here in this spot because I'm out of the others. Anyway, I want to tell you first off to start to prep your tomato. And a lot of people are scared of this, but what you want to do is bury this tomato as deep down as you can. So don't be afraid. Pop off these leaves. Just pinch them off. You can take scissors and cut them off if you want to. I just take and pinch them the best I can without breaking your main stem. Now look at that. So I'm going to have this much, plus I'm going to bury it that much into the ground. I wish this was even taller. The taller the plant, the better off you are. If you get plants that are really tall, you can do the same, make it look kind of like that right there. You could even take this other little piece off. I'm not, this way it gets a little more sun, but I've took those others off. If you look at this really, really close, it's got little bitty hairs up through here. So those little hairs will turn into roots. When the dirt gets up against here, the more, okay, Charlie, the more root base you have, the better your tomato is going to do. So every one of them little hairs, they'll turn into roots, and you'll get a great big root ball out of this thing. So, but you want to plant it as deep as you can. You want it in very loose soil, and you want to be able to water it. Now right now we're getting plenty of moisture. We don't need water, but the deeper you get it and the more root base it has, the better it will last. And here in Oklahoma, we have very hot summers, very high humidity. So when it's 100 degrees and 80–90% humidity here, the tomatoes, the blooms will want to fall off. So for a while, we want to get these planted as early as we can, and for a while, get them to set as much fruit as they can. Then when it gets really extremely hot, these will still bloom, but the blooms, this one's just fixing to bloom here. It's got a little bud on it where it's fixing to bloom. Well, the blooms will start falling off when it gets really, really hot, and they won't set any more tomatoes. So all the green ones you got set will continue to grow, and they will ripen, and you'll have lots of tomatoes. Then when it cools off, I get indeterminate varieties. If you get one that says that, okay. Anyway, in the fall, about, I want to say 1st of September, our temperatures here start going back down. Okay, Charlie, I see you. Now go on. The temperatures will start coming back down, and when they do, the tomatoes will start setting fruit again. And they may bloom all summer long, but they'll put on some. Usually the tomatoes will be smaller, but if you use an indeterminate variety, it will continue trying to put forth fruit. As long as you keep it watered, I'll go ahead and water mine once a week. That's what these pipes are that I have here, is I'll put water in this once a week. You can do it more, but mine seem to do fine. I'll explain these pipes here in just a minute. But anyway, if you get the indeterminate, now if you get a determinate variety, you're going to get probably a big crop all at once, and then they're over with for the season, and you can pull them up. But I don't pull mine up just because they quit making fruit. Maybe I'll pick all the tomatoes some years off of them. I won't worry about that. I'll just let the plants go. Now sometimes I'll have plants that get a virus or a wilt or something, and they will quit producing. And if they're dead, so I mean they're not going to make nothing anyway. I'll go ahead and pull them out to try to keep that from spreading to the other tomatoes. So that's a different story. But if they're still green, pretty, you're watering them, even though they may not have fruit on them, and may at the time being, if you'll wait a little while, they will start setting fruit, and usually before frost, we'll start getting ripe tomatoes again. And then we'll take the leftover tomatoes and the green ones, and you can put them under the bed, or you can turn them in and they'll ripen during the winter. Or what we do with ours, or if you have a basement, you can put them down in the basement or cellar and let them continue to ripen, and you'll have tomatoes through the wintertime. They're not as good, I don't think, because you picked them green, they're ripening, but when middle of the winter when you don't have tomatoes, that's pretty good eating. Also, you can take and use the green ones if you want to in the fall. What Josie will make, I'm fixing to have to wring this chicken's neck here. Josie will take and make green tomato relish. But anyhow, I'll explain these pipes here. This is what I use to water my tomatoes in. And I bury this beside the tomato. I'm going to dig a hole with my post hole diggers down about the depth of the post holes. That's about the depth of our soil. Then you get down into clay soil. And I just use the loose dirt to put back around the tomato, and while I'm at it, I slide this down right by the tomato. And what's going to happen is your roots are down here. You want that root ball to develop down here in the soil. So when I water this, it's going to put the water right down here. I don't drill a hole. I don't worry about, you can cap them. Some people do that, and they'll drill a hole. I've had those holes want to get stopped up. So instead of doing that, and some people even set them above ground and just fix it where your hole is, put a cap on it, put it above ground, and that little hole will squirt water right on your tomatoes. That's fine to do that. What I have found, it seems to encourage the grass and weeds to want to grow up right around your tomato plant. And so I don't like to do that. What I do is put this down in there. The water will come out. It'll go pretty quick, but this pipe will fill up quick with water. If you got your water hose, you just put it in there. It'll go down. If you want to fertilize, you can put some Fertilize down in this pipe. And like you can put Miracle Grow, a spoon of Miracle Grow if you wanted to in there. You could water, just take a gallon jug of Miracle Grow and pour in each pipe. I do that a lot of times. Sometimes I'll go down through here. I haven't done it this season, but I'm planning on it. I'll put a tablespoon of Epsom salt in each one of these pipes. And it's right down there, going to be right next to the main roots. It's going to encourage the roots to stay down low. It's going to keep the ground underneath moistened and soft so the roots can go deeper in the soil. And I have experimented with these without digging a post hole, and just taking my garden hoe and putting just a little hole just this deep, and not putting a pipe, maybe watering with soaker hoses. I've tried all different ways. In the fall, when the garden's done, in the wintertime after we've had good heavy frost, I'll go pull the tomato plants up. The ones that I have done with this method will have big old long root structures. In fact, sometimes it is nearly impossible to pull them out. They'll break off. Ones that I just plant this deep, you can just grab them, pull them right up, no problem. So I've got an uncle that has gardened for years, and he digs a post hole, holes like I do also, and has found very good success. Where this will work everywhere, you just need the depth of your post hole diggers. So you see how deep that is, really about right here. That deep, that's plenty. You can do deeper, like I say, or we go to hitting clay here because our topsoil's not real thick. So because of that, I just dig down to the clay. And I'll set this tomato plant down in there, and if my hole is too deep, I'll just rake loose dirt back in there, but I'll put the dirt up to right there where I've got that split, just right up there close. You'll be surprised how this thing will take off and go. Also, we had a goat dairy next door here, and where their manger area was, where they fed them, I would go clean that out and bring wheelbarrows of goats are funny. They love the stems of the alfalfa hay and not so much the leaves, where most animals want the leaves. Charlie, here our pasture box. Anyway, he's wanting to be in the movies, I guess. Anyhow, we go over and I'd take wheelbarrows and bring in here of the leaves, and it was mixed with goat manure, and bury that around my plant instead of raking the dirt back around, and they will go crazy in that. The tomato plant will. I did have rabbits here, and I would take the rabbit manure and mix it half and half with the dirt and put around them. They like that. I don't have rabbits anymore, so I don't have that to mix in here. But even without that, they seem to take off and do real well. I'm just giving you some ideas if you have something you want to mix in. If you don't have good soil, you could even take store-bought soil, like a Miracle Grow that's got feed with it and everything. And once you dig out your hole, bury it back. But this is pretty good soil here, and I will fertilize a little bit after the tomatoes get up and going. I'll fertilize some in these pipes, and usually use Miracle Grow. I've ordered another fertilizer in here that's organic, and I'm sorry I can't tell you what the name of this organic fertilizer is, but later on sometime I'll try to share that with you. If I think, I'll try to print it on here, and it's a good fertilizer, and we're going to probably use that this year more than we'll use Miracle Grow. But whatever you want to use, as long as you can grow good tomatoes, do it. And most people don't grow a big garden. I mean, we got over 100 plants here. You don't need that many. We just do a lot of canning. If you're going to can your tomatoes, make salsa, all that stuff, plus all of our family pretty much loves tomatoes, so we're going to try to grow enough for them. Anyway, I'm going to take the post hole diggers, and I'm going to show you how I do this. And I'm just going to show you, there is that tomato. And see how something has ate pretty much everything. It should look like these others and be real big and bushed out. But I looked for a hornworm. I didn't see a hornworm. It could have been that a chicken flew in here like Charlie here. He was pecking on some of the leaves of those tomatoes, but he didn't just keep eating on one, but it's the only one out of over 100 plants here that has happened to, and it just ate it right off. Anyway, I'll take this here and now when you're planting 100 plants, this takes a little bit of time to do this. You don't have to do it this way, but what I want to do is get a good little hole here opened up and have the soil loose here, and that'll help the roots also move around more because it's got freshly tore up soil. I know I've tilled the garden before I planted, did all that, but this is really gonna tear the topsoil up. And you can make the hole as big as you want, especially if you're gonna bury other soil. And you can make it deep, or if you've got taller tomatoes, just here, because I'm hitting the clay, the roots are going to grow out and stuff, so I'm not worried about that. About getting deeper, because they just tend to not do well in clay type soil. Okay, folks, I've got my pipe in here, and I'm going to take the tomato out. Once again, this is a Cherokee Purple. They are very good eating. I just don't get a very big crop of them. I've had other people tell me they do really well. Now, you see, if I planted that in there right there, that it would be too deep, because I want my soil to come up to about right there. So all I'm going to do is take a little bit of this soil and rake back in here. And this pipe, when I water, it's going to put the water down here low at the bottom of this hole, and it's going to come out. It's going to soak this. And it'll encourage, you see what a root ball that thing's got. Let's see all those roots. All of this right here is going to make roots. And we'll put it, I'm going to say, about right there. Now, it looks like, we don't have a whole lot coming out there. But I'll take this loose dirt. Like I say, you could take, if you had store-bought soil, you could put in if you don't think you got good soil in your garden, or if you got rabbit manure, compost, anything that you think would grow good. Don't use straight chicken manure, though. If you use hot chicken manure, it will eat them up. You don't want to do something that it'll get them too hot, and in the process, if they get too warm, the soil will get too hot, and you can't keep it watered enough to keep it going, and the plant will wilt. And once again, what the idea is, put the little Bonnie's stake there for Cherokee Purple. We're going to water this probably in the summer when it gets where we're not getting rain. If we don't get at least a rain a week, I'll water in here. I'll also fertilize in here. It's going to put the water down here in the bottom. It's going to go right there around the roots. That's where we want the water. If you just put the water out here on top, like a soaker hose or drip hose, in my opinion, you're just encouraging weed growth here. Yeah, you're watering your tomato. It's going to help, but it's not going to get down there deep where you really want your root ball to get down there deep where there's lots of moisture. So when you go through dry times, it'll be prepared and ready. I have used drip irrigation, and go down through here. I've got a lot of that kind of stuff, and I did have it set up where I'd put a dripper in here and turn on the water, and I put like one of those 2 gallons an hour waterers and leave it on for an hour, and it'll fill these pipes up and over. But it's just as easy, just go down through here once a week with the watering hose and just fill up each pipe with water. And that's how I plant my tomato. Okay, folks, I've got the tomato planted in the ground. I did want to go over these pipes. Where we live out here in the country, people love to travel out here. They'll just out and about. There was a man from Arkansas, I believe it was. One day I was out here working in the garden, and he just happened to come by, and he stopped out here and talked to me. And he was hunting up here on some turkey hunting on some government land, a military base. It's probably 15, 20 miles away from here. And he had just taken a drive around, and he stopped by here and introduced himself, just stopped out at the road. You can see the county road is right here. So people's all the time stopping and visiting with me, and they have questions about the garden. People see me in town, and a guy just told me yesterday, said, we were out by your house and seen your garden. Well, usually the question, the number one is, what do I do with those white pipes? Well, now you know, I use those to water my tomato plants. Now, people say, what's the difference in, you got all different sizes of pipes? That's because I got the pipes for free, and I got some 4-inch, 3-inch, 2-inch. Most of it's like Schedule 40, but it doesn't matter. It can be the 200 PSI. Schedule 40 is not necessary. It can be sewer pipe. It really doesn't matter. You don't want to spend a fortune on, and these pipes are getting old. Some of these pipes have been around a long time. So then the question comes up, well, how do you know how much water you're getting? I don't. I just fill each pipe up and it's sufficient. Some of these big sewer pipes I have, that's the big 4-inch round ones, when I had rabbits, sometimes I would take and fill that pretty well full of rabbit manure and maybe put a little bit of chicken manure and stuff in there. And then when I filled it up to water, that would soak down through, and that will really make your tomatoes grow. You don't want too much chicken now to get it too hot, but when you water, because it's not rotting right down there, it's kind of like a tea. One of these organic teas that people make for their plants and stuff, you know, now that's pretty popular. So that's basically what you're doing. It's just these smaller pipes like I have here, these 2 inches. It's a little hard to funnel rabbit manure in there, and I don't have rabbits anymore anyway, but it makes a compost tea if you fill them up with something. But otherwise, you can take a pipe, any pipe here, and you can figure out, you can probably go online and Google it and figure out how much a foot of 2-inch pipe, how much water it will hold. I know people take and water and put a little hole in like a 1-inch pipe, and they'll measure it so many feet up and put it inside the basket next to their tomato. They'll drill a little hole in the end or on the side, and they'll cap it. And with the length that they have, it'll hold a certain amount of water, like a gallon. Charlie, I thought you left a while ago. Anyway, it'll hold a gallon or 2 gallons of water. So just keep that in mind. But I don't care. As long as I fill these things up, it's plenty of water. It's always been. It works great. I usually, like I say, just once a week. One thing, I really don't have enough time to do it more oftener, but if it was really hot and dry this year, I've not watered yet, and I don't know if I will have to. Last year, I think I watered once or twice because we got rain at least a 1/2 inch to 1 inch every week. Some weeks we got inches and inches of rain. I'll tell you my number one tip I would tell you on tomatoes. Get them started early. If you're going to start seeds, start them early, like in probably January or February if you live here in Oklahoma. Get them started early. Get that plant as tall and pretty as you can. Then when you transplant it, it's already got a head start, because if you don't beat the heat, and this is here in Oklahoma, I can't say for Michigan or other places or UK or wherever you're from, but I would just tell you that getting them started early is the key here. And the earlier, the more advanced they are. Like this year, we had a little trouble with late frost and stuff, so you had to hang on to them. Well, if you buy them in little containers like this was, and your plant was this big, say if I'd have bought it back in March, and I did do some this way, and put them in coffee cans, so they're already transplanted. Then I put the coffee cans down in the ground, and I just take the bottom of the coffee can off, and they're doing super because they have that much more advancement. But you get them started early, and you get them, I want to get these things up, they're blooming too. Those tomatoes are blooming heavy, the early ones, the ones that, but if you transplant them out of the little, like even this is kind of little, and put it in a bigger pot, and get that tomato coming on up, and then bury it down as deep as you can. Get the soil really loose around it. Do all you can to get that thing going. And then you want it to set fruit. Number one thing is get them out early. I see a lot of people are waiting to now, or just recently, to start seeds. If you're in Oklahoma and you're just now starting tomato seeds, you're probably too late. You might be able to use them for a fall crop, but these will do a fall crop. If you take care of them and do them the way I'm doing, there's no need to plant another crop. These will be plenty for fall. Now, there'll be smaller tomatoes in the fall, like these beefsteaks and the Better Boys, Early Girls, Rutgers. Rutgers is one row of these is Rutgers. I love Rutgers tomatoes. For here in Oklahoma, there's different varieties. The Better Boy does very well here. I've got a few beefsteaks. They do well. They'll make some big old tomatoes, but they don't make a bunch of them. And then they kind of really in the fall don't do much. But my Better Boys, Early Girls, and Rutgers here will all put on tomatoes. Now, I've seen some of the Rutgers that will say they're a determinate variety. The Rutgers I plant, I make sure that they're indeterminate, and they will make clear up until the fall of the year. And so like I say, but they'll slow down in the summer. There'll be some hot weather starting sometime in July, August, that they'll actually quit making tomatoes, and the ones that's on there will continue to grow and get ripe. And sometimes I won't even have hardly any green ones left. This will just be all emptied of green tomatoes. The plants will look pretty because I've kept watering them. And then all of a sudden, I start seeing them blooms setting fruit, like maybe 1st of September, and they go pretty quick. They'll go, but they won't be as big as tomatoes. But I tell you, I can't tell the difference in the flavor of a big one and a little one. It's just that it takes more to fill me up. So, but the number one thing, once again, is getting them out, being able to water them, get the soil tore up, and getting them deep. Number 2 would be getting them deep, because if you don't get that down in there where they get a good root base. How I learned that to do that was years ago on Victory Garden. Do you remember Victory Garden? Used to be on public TV. We hardly had any TV channels, but one we did have was the OETA here in Oklahoma. It's a public television deal. Everybody's got them in every state. And one show, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have all this other stuff, the Garden Network or anything. So what I did was I liked to watch the Victory Garden. And there was another show, a Cajun Cook, Justin, you might remember him. You know, I love to watch him. 2 shows there. The Victory Garden sometimes had stuff I wasn't interested in, but one time they were planting tomatoes, and he showed taking the leaves off and planting that as deep as you can do. And that year I was like, I'm going to try that. Now this has been over 30 years ago. And when I did that, I was like, man, that actually works. But I have, like I say, I have experimented. A few years ago, I did 1 whole row, because somebody told me it didn't make no difference if you dug a deep hole or not. It wasn't going to help you, it wasn't going to hurt you, that they just take the garden hoe, chop out a piece of dirt, slide their tomato in there and go. So I done 1 whole row one way, 1 the other. The row that I just done with the garden hoe, it did not make just that deep, just planting them as deep as the plant dirt was in the container. They made until it got hot, they quit, the vines died, they were over with. The ones that I did with the post hole digger, even though it was a lot more work, those things produced clear up until frost. And I was like, that is where the winner is. Another thing is keep the weeds and grass out. So besides putting the water down low like I do, that helps deter the weeds and grass. I also try to mulch. I don't always mulch, but I've started some up here. If you're watching my garden updates, I'm not going to turn the camera up there, but I've been putting mulch around those. One thing you can do is take old straw bales, and I didn't do that this year, but me and my son, we shoot bow and arrows, and we'll take, we're getting good enough shots anymore that we don't need protection behind our targets. But we used to put protection behind, and we would stack up like 3 or 4 straw bales on both sides, so that if we missed the target, it would catch our arrows and keep us from losing arrows, because they're kind of pricey. So anyway, when we get through with that, I would take the straw bales out to the garden in November, December. They get rained on and everything. They'll get heavy. I'll move them out with sometimes I take a dolly to move them, because when they're soaked, they're hard to move. And I'll put them along the fence of the garden. They will begin to soak up water and rot. And I'll take that straw and use it as mulch in the spring. Like right now, I don't want them mulch everything yet, because I want these tomatoes to get up a little bit of height on me. And when they do, I'll take the garden hoe and I'll rake some of this dirt. I'll probably till, I've already done it on this row over here, but I'll till down through here on both sides and have loose dirt, and I'll rake up around my tomato also to give it more support. And I want to get it on up a little bit, and I'll still trim off some of the lower leaves to keep, when it rains, the dirt from flopping up there. But I'll take that old straw that has gotten soaked and has started rotting, and usually if it's going to sprout, it has already sprouted the wheat. It's wheat straw that we use here, and I'll put that, and it works really well. And it's kind of heavy because it's been watered down, and it'll usually do pretty good. But I've got regular cypress mulch this year that I bought at Walmart, and whatever you can use, and you don't have to. I've done years where I used that roll-out stuff and that you can buy, the cloth, and just cut and slide around my tomatoes. But I move my tomatoes a little bit every year, and I like to till everything up good, so I take that back up every year, and it's ruined then, and it's an added expense. So you could just hoe your garden, go down through. But once I put my baskets on, as I'll show you another video, I may have already done it out about how I put baskets on the tomatoes, and that gives some support, because you want them to grow straight up, and I'll do that on a whole nother video, because this one's kind of going long. Hey, if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. We want to say thank you to all of you who have subscribed, and we got a bunch of new subscribers. It sure is good to meet you, and I appreciate you watching today. If you'd give us a thumbs up if you like the video, comment down below. I know some of you up north right now, this is the middle of May, you haven't even got to plant your gardens, and some have been too wet, some have been too cold, and I feel for you. But if you're getting to plant finally, you got to update, just share it in the comment section. We love to read all the comments. We sure appreciate you watching today. May God richly bless you. And I'll say another ingredient that helps with your garden is pray. I always pray over my garden. If you aren't a prayer believer, that's your business. But I always say, Lord, I've done my part. I've put it in the ground. I've done all I know to do. I need you to send the sunshine. I need you to send your blessing upon this garden. And He always does. Anyway, I say God bless you. We'll see you next time. We're gone.